unofficial Universal Orlando podcast is a member of the Mice Chat Podcast Network. MicePod.com. Now, discover the universe, one theme park at a time.
Greetings, Universal fans. It's time for the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast, discovering more about the Universal Orlando Resort, as well as Universal Studios Hollywood, Japan, and Singapore.
Welcome to episode 98 of the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast, brought to you in association with MiceChat.com and sponsored by Fairy Godmother Travel. I'm your hostess, Tracy, and with me as usual we have Darren.
Hello.
We have Hunter.
What's up, everybody?
We have Lee.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest that I know you're all going to be excited to hear is with us, Mr. Jim Hill. Hello.
Hey guys, how you doing?
We're good. How are you?
It's been far too long.
It has.
Well, you know, the witness protection program has rules.
This is true. Yeah.
Just had to go into hiding for all those many weeks.
It's been far too long.
Definitely.
It has. And I, for one, I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody here, I have been so excited about this show since we got you booked in, Jim. It's always so exciting to have you on.
Well, thank you. I again, you know, but let's be honest here. The thing it's not me we're talking about. It's Diagon Alley.
Yeah.
I know your enthusiasm.
I am, you know, I'm just like the telephone wire. I'm, you know, just
conduit.
You know, there we go.
That's a big word, do you?
Thank you.
There you go.
So yeah, we're not going to bring you a news update this week, as pretty much all we're going to talk about today is big news.
As I said on last week's show, why not everybody else's?
Of course, yes. So Jim, you travelled to Orlando 2 weeks ago as part of the media preview for Diagon Alley and Cabana Bay, but mostly Diagon Alley. So would you be kind and talk us through the media event, please?
Well, to be honest, this is actually my third trip to Diagon Alley. I was lucky enough in January to get the opportunity to walk the construction site, and then I want to say 4 weeks ago, they invited me down to do a tasting at the Leaky Cauldron to sort of walk out the menu. So this was what was kind of weird. Just to get to see it in these various different stages. I mean, for example, when I was down there for the Leaky Cauldron tasting, they were in the process of shooting all of the television ads. So it was all of these actors who were dressed, you know, as Florida tourists, you know, looking in windows that if you look too deep and you realize the store was empty, but again, the window was, it's like, wow, look at this amazing store. We should go in there, you know, and stuff like that. But right from the get-go in January, this impressed in a large way. I mean, I know everybody's seen the pictures of the Lund facades, and at this point, you've seen pictures of the streets themselves and some of the shops and that sort of thing. But you have to understand that the scale this time around, you know, they were very straightforward about the fact that they took the lessons that they learned from Hogsmeade Village and Hogwarts Castle and applied them to this area. And in fact, I think it was Terry Koo, the gentleman who's sort of the mastermind of all of the rides, who talked about the fact that for this particular expansion, for this version of the Harry Potter world, they drew much more from the films than the books. I
think you said that on the Disney Dish when you went for the Leaky Cauldron. You did mention that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, you know, it's very noticeable. I mean, it's one of these things where you come through the wall, and you know you're on the movie set. Now, you know, I haven't had the luxury yet of getting over to see the Harry Potter experience at that's at Leavesden, is it?
Yeah, we're actually I'm hoping this week to book for us to go in August this year, so we're going to check it out this year.
But it was Helena Bonham Carter who was actually talking about the fact that, you know, it's one thing to do the movies where the sets go up 20 feet or, you know, or sort of kind of wrap around you, but, you know, there's always the camera crew and that sort of thing. And it's quite another to have them tower over you and to wrap around. It was honestly funny to kind of watch the film people who kept sort of goggling, because they, there's kind of a funny story from the opening of the original Harry Potter in 2010. They had just finished shooting the last scenes for the Half-Blood Prince Part 2. And, they all got teary. They were hugging one another. And it's like, oh, we're never going to see each other again. They will never be able to replicate this experience. And 2 weeks later, they're standing in the street at, Hogsmeade Village. And, oh, well, I guess we are going to repeat this. And in fact, that's what's kind of interesting watching the Harry Potter actors now. Because this is, they've done this multiple times at this point. And, they've got that kind of look of the Star Trek actors, it's just sort of like who have begun doing lots and lots of fan events. And, just sort of the notion of, wow, I'm going to be doing this for a couple of decades yet.
Yeah.
And, I think Matthew of the bunch of them are really sort of is staring this down and wondering, do I really want to be part of this? And it's interesting to note for this event where they got for the opening of Hogsmeade Village, Emma came out and Rupert Grint and of course Daniel, but they were nowhere to be seen this time. In fact, the folks at Universal eventually fessed up to the fact that Emma and Daniel hadn't even taken part in the production of the ride film.
Yeah, because I'd heard that. I think I've said they've got voice actors, and apparently the one of Harry's pretty good, but the Hermione one's apparently awful.
Yeah, who knew that Emma was that hard to imitate? But yeah, but the weird thing is, again, using the Star Trek parallel, this happens. I mean, when an actor finds themselves that much associated with a particular character, they sometimes, revolt. I mean, honestly, to have starred in a series of, those 8 films that have made so much money and gone in so many different directions, that's going to be something that's difficult to shake. But anyway, back to Diagon Alley. So, it is fascinating to get them talking about those who want to come back and those who don't. Rafe Fiennes and Helena were just thrilled to get to play these characters one more time. That Helena was talking about how much she'd missed Bellatrix's teeth, and Rafe evidently, when he's not playing, the he who should not be named, just delights in being in the makeup and the robe and waving the wands around. So it was nice to get a chance to revisit these characters. But at the same time, it's just sort of like, this is what they've done. The ride films and the film for the Hogwarts Express are just to add to the immersiveness of this. And honestly, it's so hard to describe. I guess the analogy would be if you think of Hogsmeade as the shallow end of the pool, all right, this is the deep end. There's more Potter here. In fact, there is a genuine concern on Universal's part that people may come through the door here, and rather than do the standard theme park thing of linger for an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe have a meal, do a little shopping, ride a ride, and then go to the other parts of the park, that they may hang in here for 3, 4, 5 hours.
I could quite happily do that. I mean, we've done it in Hogsmeade, so if that's as well themed as everyone seems to say it is, I could see us doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't get me wrong, Universal loves that idea, because you go to shop, and you buy things and all that, but it's the other people standing in that wonderful Central Florida sun, waiting for their shot at going through the wall.
Yeah.
It's there's a reason that the opening got pushed back to July 8th, and it's not just trying to get all the bells and whistles on Escape from Gringotts to work. There are still some operational issues that are gonna be spending a good part of the summer trying to figure these out.
Right.
Well, I heard that they've put in the ticket things to get your ticket for your like your window of return time. But is that right, Jim? That those tickets are just to get into the actual London facade, not actually into the land?
Well, again, they, this week, for example, is the first week where they have to start working with civilians. I mean, they've had the press in, they had the London press in before the U.S. press, and there's a bunch of groups that they're bringing through for the next couple of days. But starting on the 28th and the 29th, that's the first time people who've paid Universal for vacation packages will be allowed in. And they're going to be looking really hard at how those people move through the land, how quickly, they can process them through the wall before, a lot of the operational stuff is put into place. In fact, it's just interesting when you get to talk with some of the folks about what they've done to make it easier for people to get in and out of the land. I take, for example, the wall of the Leaky Cauldron. The original plan, in fact, Universal Creative dummied up a wall where the idea was you'd come around the corner and the wall had just opened, so you could still see bricks spinning and that sort of thing. So you'd get a sense that you just missed the magical moment, but you were there as it was still going on. It was Comcast and NBC's lawyers that came down on them like a ton of bricks and said, no, you can't do that. Spinning bricks will be too tempting to little fingers. Kids will reach out and, nothing says I had an enjoyable, Universal Orlando vacation like losing a hand.
Yeah.
So that fell by the wayside. It's just sort of a gap in a wall now.
And then you can come up with the next expansion, should be St. Mungo's then.
Well, and it's kind of funny you mentioned the expansion, because when we were there on Thursday, they were just about to chase us out to the Cabana Bay opening event. And myself, Nancy, and I want to say Seth Kaversky were among the last folks in there. And they opened the elephant doors, these large doors that they use that they can bring in the Pargos and the various trucks that have merchandise so they can restock the shelves. And this was off of Carket Market. And you could see that there was a clear shot through this door right down to where the Fear Factor stunt show was based. And so, you have to assume that given the way this has been set up, and more to the point, there's actually talk this summer that, the Fear Factor Theater may actually be a place where they park crowds as they, try to figure out, when they're waiting for those people who are in there for 3 and 4 and 5 hours to get out, that they'll park them there because at least it has shade, and some place to sit down rather than making people stand up. But yeah, it looks like at some point in the future they're going to swallow that turf and just bump out the borders of Diagon Alley that way. It's actually interesting talking with these guys, because the other thing you got to remember is that July 8th is when the Diagon Alley here opens, but a week later in Japan, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opens up there. And, they've got their Hogsmeade Village. They've got their Forbidden Journey. Only, actually, kind of an interesting story. About 3 or 4 months back, they actually took the Florida version of Forbidden Journey, and I don't want to say they dumbed it down, but it turns out that Japanese are much more motion sensitive than we are in the West. So they went with a more smooth programming, not quite as herky-jerky. For the ride, and wanted to test that with guests and see if they found that to be a satisfying experience, and they did. So that's the version of the ride that's actually being installed in Japan.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? Because wasn't the original ride profile for Forbidden Journey slightly more intense than it is now?
Yep, that it was. And it will be interesting to see what the profile will be like when that pops up in California in 2016, which, by the way, is heavy duty into construction. 2 weeks ago Thursday, I was wandering the upper lot, and dear God, that may be the biggest, grandest version of Hogsmeade of all, particularly given that they're planning on building a full-size Hogwarts castle, and just the foundation pieces there are stunning. But anyway, to get back to Hogsmeade, and it really is. It's just hard to describe. You walk in and you have story going 4 stories up. In some cases, 5 stories up.
Wow.
Just being in the Leaky Cauldron, which has this medieval high ceiling, and giant, cracked cauldron sitting in the fireplace that just goes up and up and up. And in fact, that's the funniest thing. I was talking with Dale Mason about this, that if you turn around and actually watch people come through the hole in the wall for the Leaky Cauldron, there's this moment. I mean, everybody's got their cell phone up and they're doing what we all do these days, which is document everything that's going on. And then there's this funny moment where people's jaws sag and their phone, drifts downward as they just look up and like, dear God, what, oh, look at the size of, and then they suddenly realize, oh my, I'm pointing my cell phone as my crotch, and then just immediately lift it up and start filming everything. I mean, this place defeated the cell phone. It actually made people to look away from their cell phones.
It's amazing.
Well, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
But there's a subtle uphill. I want to say that Gringotts is maybe 3 to 5 feet higher than the the low at your entry point at the hole at the wall, the Leaky Cauldron. So you kind of drift uphill to Gringotts, but immediately when you get up there, the T, you can either go to the right down to Carket Market, or if you go to the left, you can actually go in through the back entrance of what is it? Nocturne Alley. And that's that's when it gets kind of interesting, because Nocturne Alley, like so many other spots around Diagon Alley, have those interactive wand moments. Mm-hmm. And this was evidently kind of controversial within Universal, because of course, the thing is that the normal wands, that one gets at Ollivanders, are $30 a piece, and these new wands are $45 a piece. So there's this significant price jump, and that coupled with the fact that Ollivanders actually has 3 of those shops, or the 3 of the wizard encounter things. They're all the same, mind you, but that it's in a nice indoor air-conditioned waiting area, so it's not going to be quite the experience that guests had over in Hogsmeade Village. But you still come out. I mean, you're still presented with your wand. You still purchase this, and you have to wonder at the children who are like, I bought my wand and I'm going out and using it. It's like, oh, honey, you have the wrong wand. Yeah. And this isn't going to be helped by the situation that in Diagon Alley you have 18 of these stations where you wave your wand and things happen, and over in Hogsmeade they've retrofitted in 9.
Wow! So
total of 27. Which at the same time, if you do your math, that's still over $1, per illusion, and some of these are kind of illusions. It's just sort of like, point at the umbrella. Oh, look, it rains, just like how the umbrella on the Disney MGM backlot rains.
I do like where they've positioned that, though.
I agree. And there's, to be honest, I'm more of a fan of the stuff that's just there that you discover. I mean, for example, when you go to the shop where you can purchase your, your familiar, your whether it be your owl or your. And in fact, I was informed that at least during the test phase, that the thing that was flying out the door was the really mangy-looking Crookshanks. So really dumpy-looking stuffed cat, but evidently that's the one people are. Oh, I want that. On the other hand, in a window that's actually off to the side, they have a giant animatronic boa constrictor that, if you stand there long enough, actually begins to speak parcel tongue to you.
Oh, that is awesome!
So cool.
Just enough that you can make out that it's like, wow, can I speak parcel tongue? Because I'm understanding the snake. But that's kind of what's really cool about this, that this is not, I have to stress to folks that this is not your standard theme park area. You're not going to run in, ride the ride, get an ice cream, and go. Move on to the next thing. This is you're going to have to exercise a whole new set of theme park muscles, and some of the time you're going to find things that you are just going to be surprised that you find. In fact, I'm working on a series of stories with the folks at Universal, and they were nice enough to let me arrange a meeting with Tom Williams, who's the chairman of Universal Parks and Resorts. And so we got talking in his office about Potter, and he was saying that, I recently an invoice came across my desk, and I didn't recognize what it was for. So I went down to the site, and it was like, and he had to walk into Weasley Wizards Wheezes, and it's like, where were the fireworks? It's like, oh, hang on. And so they push him basically back against the wall. I mean, his butt is against the, a shelf, and he has to, so now look up, and it's like through two sets of interlocking staircases, just like you see in the film. High at the top of this shop is a skylight where there is this perpetual fireworks display going on.
Wow.
But there's only two places in the shop that you can see it.
Right.
All right. You can either be backed into this corner, or you can, as you're completing your purchase, you can look straight up. But you honestly have to be pressing your crotch into the cash register to see this thing. And really, I don't necessarily recommend that.
No.
But that's the only way you can see this. And Tom's like, I spent the money. I wanted to see it. It's really cool. I trust these guys. Moving on. It's just sort of like, so it's just these little pieces of things that only, you're going to discover.
But people will find them. It's kind of like the extendable ears that were in Zonko's in Hogsmeade.
But that's the thing that I think they've gone so far the other way. That there's there's a lot of this stuff that you're just going to be, looking at the facades, and it's like, oh, that's a piece of statue paying tribute to house elves. Or for that matter, if you aren't walking by Grimald Place at the exact time when the window opens and Creature looks out and mutters at you. That's the thing. Some of the stuff is just going to be luck of the draw.
Yeah.
But it's put together by people who have so much respect for the IP, who work very hard with the folks at Warner's, and keep applying these lessons. That's the other thing. When you look at this place and you look at the lighting package, think about it. You go into any other theme park, you go into any other land, and you have this wonderful theme, but you have this lighting that is theme park lighting. And here they've tried to replicate wherever they can gaslight. In fact, I honestly, you feel so bad for the guys who did all of the wonderful signage. I mean, for example, the back of Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, the entire back of the building is this one giant advertisement for everything they sell in the shop. Dung bombs and all manner of funny, offensive gags. But then, after doing this beautiful job of painting it, they brought in the aging people who, because this is a part of London, it's been there forever, so they had to age it over with dust and soot and make it look like it's been there for decades. So, it's one of these things where you got to feel for the guys who work so hard on the graphics. It's like, that's good, that's great. Now he's smeared with soot. No one can see it. But yeah, it's they have just done such a nice job, and that's when they put forward the train, which we really haven't talked about yet, but is charming. I mean,
I think we need to start getting into the land a bit more. And
okay, I mean, that they've done such a nice job. And in fact, what's so nice is if you're making your way through the queue and you ask one of the cast members, I'm going. This is to platform 9 3/4, and it's like, Sir, there is no platform at 9 3/4. We have a 9 or we have a 10, but we don't have a 3/4. All of us have been told that there's an effect in the queue. And in fact, there is. The problem is that you need to be in the queue with lots of other people to see it happen. It's a Pepper's Ghost effect.
Right.
All right.
So, but you're in one part of the queue and you can actually see people in another part of the queue seem to walk through a wall. And so
it's not something you would, is that, so basically it's not something you would see as you go through, you would see other people go through.
That's it exactly.
Okay.
All right. And then you come around the corner and, here's the train station, which, in both times that we did it, the train wasn't actually in the station. You sort of queued up and waited, and then the train backed in, and you boarded then. But anyway, the train itself is, let's work the math here. So there are 3 cars. There are 6 compartments in each car, and there are spots. In fact, they're designated on the benches for 8 people. So that's 48 people per train. That's 3 carloads. So you have 144 people at any one time in a train that's going from King's Cross to Hogsmeade Village. But you have to understand the way this works is as a train is leaving King's Cross, there is also a train leaving Hogsmeade Station. So what we're really talking about is 2 ride vehicles that combined every 6 minutes or so. They're still working out what the load time on this is. But that's 288 people who are in transit between these different parts of the Harry Potter world. And the ride film itself is basically 4 minutes long. It's 3 minutes 58 seconds, 3 minutes 59. Seems to be some disagreement over the actual length. But what's wonderful about it is that you have, if you're sitting in the bench seats, you have to one side you have your window, your window looking out onto the countryside, and to the opposite side of this you have some smoke glass windows that they actually close the door to your compartment. Mm-hmm. And then you can see some shadows of people walking by, and you hear them talking outside. And this is actually where you get to hear the Hermione that doesn't sound like Hermione. Right. But in fact, there was some discussion about I think they were kind of hoping that late in the game that Emma Watson might relent and at least come in and record her lines. But I guess that didn't happen. Anyway, I mean, you going to Hogwarts, you are chugging through the English countryside. If you look in the distance, you can actually see Death Eaters flying over London. Cool. You go by Malfoy Manor en route, which seems to have a perpetual thunder and lightning storm going on. And one of the Easter eggs of the attraction, again, I got this from Terry Q himself. He said, "What if you see the dead tree at Malfoy Manor? Keep an eye on it, because when the lightning strikes, it will be revealed to be Lord Voldemort."
Cool.
Ooh.
So, but only for the one lightning strike. So keep an eye on that. Mm-hmm. But you then head into the high Scottish countryside, and you see owls delivering packages, and you get a wonderful view of the castle. You also get to see the Weasley family's Ford Angula still driving through the woods, causing trouble. Cool. And, as you arrive at the train station, who's there to greet you but Hagrid himself, just so getting ready to grab the first years and put them in the boats and take them across Black Lake. But at the same time, you have stuff going on in the corridor. I believe it's the trip there where you suddenly, there's a Dementor in the corridor and you actually see it put its hand on the glass window, and you actually see, sort of ice and frost kick up, and then Harry goes after it with a Patronus, and then coming back the other way, it's in a weird sort of way. It's a bend on everything you saw. You now have Hagrid, much as he did at the end of the very first Harry Potter film, the Sorcerer's Stone, just sort of walking along the platform and waving goodbye, and then you're going through the Dark Forest yet again, and then you see a trio of centaurs sort of charging along, and then suddenly here are, the George and I'm blanking the name of the other Fred. But they've they're on their brooms, sort of hassling you, and they fire off a firecracker, which then be sure to shop at Weasley Wizards Weasley at Diagon Alley. And then once again you go by the Malfoy Manor, and as you're coming into the city, you get to see the night bus and sort of squeezing its way through traffic. And damn it, I'm blanking his name. The Goblet of Fire, the wizard who I'm so embarrassed that I have to do this. The guy who played Doctor Who impersonated him.
Mad-Eye Moody.
Yes.
Mad-Eye Moody. You get to see Mad-Eye Moody sort of loitering outside of King's Cross Station, which I thought was a really nice touch, because they hadn't talked about bringing him into work on it. And in fact, that's the other thing of it. They've just everywhere they could bring these folks in who worked on the films, they did.
Diagon Alley is opening at Universal Studios Florida on July 8th, and we know all you witches and wizards can't wait to visit. So let our friends at Fairy Godmother Travel deal with the muggles in resort reservations. They are Universal Parks and Resort specialists, as well as an authorised Disney vacation planner, and their service is free to you. From the new Cabana Bay Hotel to those other hotels run by a mouse, Fairy Godmother Travel can book all your Orlando area vacation needs. And make sure to let them know you heard about them because of UUOP, because every UUOP referral helps us continue to bring you the best Universal coverage. Contact them today by phone on 832-284-4002 or toll free 888-939-642539 or go to fairygodmothertravel.com. Let Fairy Godmother Travel make your next vacation magical.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming.
Nancy and I were actually in the Leaky Cauldron late in the afternoon on the last day they let us in there. We doubled back in.
It's magic.
George Jetson just came in. Jane, stop this thing. No, we're sitting in there enjoying what is it? The lemon punch, and there was a peach iced tea that's really, really nice. And we only eventually became aware that Ellen Gilmore was sitting at a table behind us, along with Rick Ferrell, Rick is one of these guys who never gets the credit that he should on the Harry Potter project. He's the guy who went through the books and found every food product, every possible mention of something that could be turned into something that would be sold in the shops or a place that people would want to visit. So this is the guy who, sort of identified a lot of the stuff that they wanted to do.
He did the same over for Springfield as well, didn't he?
He was heavily involved in that as well. Yeah, that's in fact, he brought his copy, his well-thumbed copy of the first couple of Harry Potter books, and showed the number of color Post-its that were sticking out of the side of this thing. But yeah, the two of them are just sitting in there, just taking a moment to enjoy what they've accomplished. And Alan sees us there and waves Nancy over and proceeds to explain that how Nancy's trying to take pictures inside of Leaky Cauldron. It's like, no, come here. Let me do what I did to the directors of the Harry Potter movies. You don't want to shoot there. You want to shoot here. And actually, showed her the shot that she really wanted to have. That, the archway frames everything. You can see things in the business. And, just was art directing her photograph for the,
Wow.
But he was, that they have worked so hard and so long on this. And, I think that's the nicest part of this, is even they are kind of stunned at how well it turned out. I mean, they were really hoping they'd be able to pull it off, but to be down inside of it and to see, just how, everyone keeps using the term immersive, but this truly is. You can't see out into any other parts of the theme park. It's not a question of, say when you're over in Hogsmeade Village, and if you go out on the back deck, and you can actually see other parts of islands.
Pretty much the rest of islands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but here that you can't do that. You can't. You are just in the world of Harry Potter, and there's no escaping it. And then now it just becomes a case of they have done this wonderful job of creating this world and creating these shops, and but at the same time, it's understanding that it's a theme park. I mean, when we were in there, when we went into Gringotts, the lobby of Gringotts to do the ride, you could walk right up to the counters. You could, you could reach up and touch the banknotes and all that the goblins had there. And the day guest isn't going to get that experience. They're going to be putting in stanchions. They're going to be, keeping, because again, there's this whole thing in the theme park world, the envelope of protection.
Yeah.
That you want to keep people at a distance because, I think it was Alan who mentioned this. Said, look, the Harry Potter fans at least have great respect for what we do. They've been very kind to us, but at the same time, theme park guests are theme park guests. They just I'm going to touch that. They are. When you finish something, you hand it off to the theme park, and they then have to figure out how to operate it, how to get as many people as possible. And let me be blunt here, all right? Out behind Gringotts is a set of back and forth queues with some trees for shade, but that area is set to hold 4,000 people.
Whoa.
Wow.
All right, so when it gets busy, and if they can convince enough people to go ride Gringotts Coaster, which I'm sure you've heard the stories. It does have some operational issues, but they'll get that sorted out.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and again, maybe some math genius can figure out what the actual capacity of this thing is. But the way it works is in the station at any one time, there are 2 vehicles loading. Each of these vehicles is basically a 2-car train. Each of these, and each individual car in the train holds 12 people. So you have 24 people to one side, 24 people to the other side. So you have 48 people being loaded. But they dispatch an individual train. It's a single track attraction. So, one group of people goes out, of 24 goes out every 80 seconds. That's the amount of time they figure it takes to get everybody out of the car and get the next group seated and then ready to load. So, if somebody out there wants to break down what the hourly capacity, then again, that's operating at maximum capacity. That everything's efficient. There's nobody who has trouble getting in and out of the cars. And again, not to be a party pooper here, but there seem to be some issues, particularly if you're male, with the seats in this car.
Okay.
I'm going to try to figure out how to say this delicately. Some people have referred to it as an involuntary prostate exam.
Okay.
There's just, when you pull the bar down, it's just sort of kind of turn your head and cough time, guys.
Okay.
So that, it turns out that, and the euphemism that if you're in the seat that's a little too tight, then those are typically row 1 and row 2. It's like, sir, we could move you to the 3rd row. That would be more comfortable. So if you're having issues, ask to be moved to row 3. Right. But this is a ride where at any one time, 6 different cars can be moving through the building in addition to the 2 that are being loaded.
Okay.
Right.
And I think they have a total of 9 cars. So there's 1 held in reserve that can be brought in if things go down.
Yeah.
If somebody out there wants to work the math and get back to Lee and Tracy about what they think the capacity is, I'd love to hear what
Tracy
that
reckons she
number.
thinks she's worked it out.
Okay.
I think it may be 2,160 people an hour.
That sounds
Really?
like a lot, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's.
I think. I may be wrong, but I think.
Well, if that's great, if that in fact is the number they can get to, because that's, I think Pirates Pirates at peak efficiency back when Disneyland was really piling on the boats at Disneyland. They could get 3,200 people through an hour, and I think the Haunted Mansion at peak does 2,400 people an hour. So
When you think that's an Omnimover as well, so it's constantly going.
It is. But, the thing is, as it turns out, try as you might, you can't always fill every chair. Or just sort of people don't entirely understand the concept and one gets by, or they can't decide, are the two of us or the three of us? You've been in line for an hour. You can't decide how many there are of you.
So talking about the ride itself, Jim, how comparing it, like everyone's obviously going to compare it to Forbidden Journey.
Well, here's the thing, okay? On media night, it ran twice, 3 times, something like that. I was actually in the last group that they tried to get on the ride before they shut it down for the night. And it's kind of an embarrassment for them because even Helena Bonham Carter with Tim Burton got on it and had her thing break down, which was why the next day when people are asking, what did you think of the attraction? It's like, well, something happened. Let's move on to another topic. From friends who have ridden on it, they actually say it's smooth. It's a coaster, but the gimmick of this coaster is that it spins, in various different rooms, and you have the Kuka arm technology that's used in the other Potter attraction, Forbidden Journey, but it's used to move props and that sort of thing. I can't really pass judgment on it based on what other people have said. People I trust, though, suggest that it's not necessarily as good as Forbidden Journey. They sort of say if Forbidden Journey is a 5, this is maybe a 4.5. But the upside of it is that you get so much more time with the characters, and it's not necessarily the Harry Potter greatest hits that Forbidden Journey is. You're in this very specific moment from Deathly Hallows. And in fact, I remember talking with this was Mark Woodbury, the head of Universal Creative, and they were just like, well, what we decided with this one was that, there are moments, you actually encounter, Bellatrix in the vaults. Because again, the whole notion is that as soon, we saw in the movie that as soon as somebody tried to break into the vault and touch the wrong thing, all of the trophies began multiplying and the clackers going off and that sort of thing. And the notion was that somehow Bellatrix knew that someone broke into the vault. She comes there. And she thinks because you're there, she began. You're there with the thieves, so she begins attacking you. And of course, moments after Bellatrix arrives, who comes in right behind her but Voldemort. So, and this was supposedly a note they got back from the folks who'd been on the previous attraction, that they wanted more time. They didn't want to see everybody. They just wanted significant time with the characters that they remembered and that they liked. And as it turns out, the top 3 there was Harry, Ron, and Hermione, but they also wanted to see some of the baddies. So they came up with the idea that, like, well, Harry and Ron and Hermione are in the vault battling the multiplying trophies, that maybe while we're on the outside, we're suddenly going head to head with Voldemort and Bellatrix. And then, the two storylines then come together as they break free, climb on the dragon, and make their way out. And we use that as our distraction to escape. So
you never got to experience the ride then properly then, Jim. So, but obviously you got to experience the queue, and how was that? Because I heard it's slightly different from Forbidden Journey, isn't it? Because it's more like, is it 2 or 3 individual experiences of themselves rather than a conga line, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, you do get your interaction with the animatronic goblins in the lobby, and it's a beautiful rendition of that space from the films. And then you start to go down into the vault areas, and you have various talking paintings telling you this is not a place to explore, blah 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 blah. Then you end up at a point where they take a photograph of you for your security badge, which Again, based on what we experienced the opening night, I dearly hope that they put in some sort of a queuing system, because that got honestly felt for the Universal team members who were behind the counter with all of these people clamoring for their photos. It was kind of like the last helicopter out of Vietnam, just lots of chaos. Like, give me a picture. And then, that you get a Musion screen thing. If you've been on Disaster, you get the Weasley brother who works for the bank explaining that he's going to join you on your tour, but he's interacting.
I want to say
Charlie, yeah. But with the you also just sort of reinforce the fact that the goblins are not necessarily your friend here. And then you further on down the hall, you board a largish elevator that, much like the hydrolators at Epcot, sort of simulate that you're going down several miles till you can get on the transport. It's this next part that I think some people may have issue with. You step out of the elevator, and they're actually the two elevators that now feed into a single line. And this is where you're supposed to pick up your quote-unquote mining goggles. These are the 3D glasses you need for the movie.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And this was where the attraction broke down. And what was interesting is the night we were there, we were actually in line with the guys who designed the ride. And it's fascinating to hear the conversation like, oh, crap, it broke down. And they begin conferring among themselves. So how long is this going to take to reset? So, it typically took us 18 minutes. All right, so 18 minutes, I have to cycle. So what, we're going to be down here for 25 minutes? Yeah. So, lots of hard practical information that, frankly, I shouldn't have had. But, standing there with these folks. But now you're in this relatively low-ceilinged room where everyone is talking. It got really loud and really tight. So, not very enjoyable experience. And then when you finally come out of that room, there is an elevator up to that space, but the next floor, which is where you load, nobody bothered to mention that. What they had for folks, and everybody took it that night, was a winding circular staircase that went up, but that was poured concrete and metal that I really felt bad. There were a number of older people, and I'm 55. But older, heavier folks than I that were really struggling to get up those stairs, especially with how slowly things were loading because it kept breaking down. Mm-hmm. So just as an advice, if you have trouble with stairs and you reach that moment, find an attendant and say, I know there's an elevator around here, and take me to it. And then from there, it's just, upstairs, and that you're in a room filled with, stalactites and, suitably dank, that you're supposedly miles underground getting ready to journey to your vault. And again, it was wonderfully designed, looked great. And the people who came in hooted and hollered. They had a great time, but they just couldn't keep it running that night. Yeah. But again, this is why, and I have this straight from Tom Schroeder, this is why you hold previews. Yeah. You're working out the kinks. You're trying to get everything to work. And I'm, Nancy and I have actually, are making plans to be down there for the opening day on July 8th. And hopefully we'll get to ride it then, unless we're outside in the 4,000 person line burning to death in the Orlando sun. But going forward, they honestly believe that this, they can handle this one, and more to the point, they will spend the summer figuring out how to queue people and how to make it work properly. And I guess that would be my one piece of advice for those of you who are thinking of actually doing Diagon Alley, that it might actually be wiser. In fact, this is the plan I'm making with my own daughter, is that we'll go down in November to check this place out. We're going to go during her spring break, or excuse me, her fall break from college. Uh-huh. And when the crowds should be, it'll be right after Halloween Horror Nights. But yeah, we're going to go in November after they sort of, had their shakedown cruise. And enjoy the cooler Florida weather.
Yeah.
And so if I were doing this, I would suggest, for the first time, I would suggest holding off to the fall. Let them figure out how to move people through this. Let them, because there are going to be kinks, there are going to be problems, and they're going to discover them July 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, and charge right through the summer.
Yeah.
But they'll figure it out. And at that point, go and see this amazing thing and understand that based on what they were insinuating, they're not done. We may see more Harry Potter stuff. Of course, before we see that, we'll see the Kong thing that they haven't actually admitted that they're building yet, which I always find the Universal people hilarious that way.
Yeah.
It's like, what thing? Well, what are you talking about? It's like that giant open space over there in the middle of the park where they say they're building Transformers. I have no idea what you're talking about until we're ready to announce that. But as of right now, I know nothing at all. I don't know what you're looking at. So, yeah.
Now, I just wanted to ask, going back to the space, having actually been in there multiple times and seeing how much space they have, does it feel like a large area back there? Does it feel really tight? Because all the pictures, you see the buildings bending inwards and everything like that, which kind of creates it looks claustrophobic from the photos. But then some of the more recent press photos I saw from the event, there was, it looked a lot bigger than it did in the initial photos that Universal put out. So how do you feel about the space there?
Well, previously they'd kept us on a fairly short leash. When we did the construction tour, we were only, allowed to basically walk to the top of the street where Gringotts was. They wouldn't let us go down into Diagon Alley. When you can actually get up to horizontally, that's a pretty wide thoroughfare, and Carpet Market is surprisingly large. I don't think that's the concerns early on about it being tight. I think honestly the only place in this place that's tight and deliberately so is Nocturne Alley, and even then they had already put in some stanchions. So, for example, if you're going to use your magic wand to basically try to control all of the shrunken heads that are singing "I Ain't Got No Body," that you would stand in that line, and everybody would go through that. I think it's, and again, they kind of stressed that this was a lesson we learned from Hogsmeade Village. They sort of a tacit acknowledgement that maybe Hogsmeade is a little small, and maybe. But that's the problem when you have movie guys who haven't built things for theme parks and want it to be authentic. They went with the scale for the movies, and it kind of bit them in the ass. But to give Stuart Craig and Alan Gilmore credit, they clearly learned their lessons, and things are not only taller, to sort of immerse you in the world, but wider. So it's an urban environment. And again, that's the other thing to understand, that you're going from a 600-year-old Scottish village to, an urban setting, that predominantly Victorian construction, but it's wider. It'll eat more people. It won't quite feel as as tight. And the nice thing is with the wonderful glass ceiling that's over a lot of Carpet Market, not only is it the wonderfully air conditioned back there, but it's Central Florida. It's going to rain. And this will allow people not to have to suddenly scatter and run into buildings. They hadn't quite put out as many tables and chairs as I think they will eventually, but part of that is because at least one part of Carpet Market is a stage where they'll be doing the Tales of Beetle Labard, and I'm blanking the name of the vocalist from the Wizarding World, but
Celestina Warbeck.
There we go, and they did such a nice job with that. In fact, the gentleman who wrote the songs for Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, and the Broadway show First Date, Zachary Levi. I'm blanking the name of the other gentleman, but yeah, they did such a nice job with that. But yeah, I don't think it's those who are looking, who are concerned about that. That's not really the issue that a lot of us thought it initially would be. And at the same time, when you hear things about, when you see how huge and how long the queue is for in King Cross Station for the Hogwarts Express. I again didn't get really to eyeball as much of the queue as I wanted to on the Hogsmeade Village side. But yeah, there's a lot of places they can put people, and it just now becomes a question of, you always learn what your capacity is by putting people in things, and it's like, wow, we can fit 6,000. It's too bad we put 7,000 in there. So.
Well, talking of authentic details, I know poor Hunter's been sat there quiet as a mouse for the last bit. I'm going to lead him in a little bit. How cool is that dragon in person, Jim?
It's, it honestly, it took a couple of times to see him breathe fire. I mean, I was always at one street over and would hear the and it's like, damn it, missed it again. But it was finally, and in fact, of course. So when does it start going off in multiples? I'm sitting there interviewing Thierry, they were 20 feet away, maybe 30 feet below the thing. And, when it goes off, you can feel the heat on the back of your neck. It's like, wow, that is impressive. So yeah, it's cool. But again, it's not an animatronic. That's another thing to understand here, that's a static pose. And when it breathes, it breathes. And evidently, there were some fairly strong winds going on early on when they were testing it. And it's like, wow, when the winds are blowing, it reaches the building across the way. And maybe that's not a good idea. So they're putting in an anemometer up there, and will determine that, that the fire will be breathed, at when the wind's blowing in a certain direction and a certain speed, and only at that. So, might be one of those luck of the draw things.
Go on then, Hunter, ask your question.
Personally, it's been well documented. I'm not a huge fan of the dragon. I'm just wondering if any of the team members or Diagon Alley residents have any sort of explanation while this dragon is on the loose and everybody is going about their normal day-to-day lives and business and everything like that.
To be honest, that didn't come up. What came up was the discussion about when somebody came up with the idea that wouldn't it be cool if there were a dragon on top of the building that had just escaped it? Wouldn't it be cool if it blew fire? And it was, it wasn't a question of, geez, that isn't authentic, and geez, wouldn't people be panicking if it was there? It's like, this was a decision strictly driven by wouldn't it be cool if. And, Mark Woodbury and Alan Gilmore readily admitted it was one of the things they immediately said yes to when it was suggested, and then they had to figure out how to do it. I mean, again, if you're a Harry Potter purist, or if you're a stickler for authenticity, which let's start with the fact that there are no dragons. All right, but in the real world, but I know.
There goes my pet.
Spoiler. I'm sorry.
I know. I'm horrified now.
But the whole notion of, well, a real dragon wouldn't do that. It would leave. It's like, well, okay. It's we'll go talk with a nice Game of Thrones lady and see what she has to say. No, again, it's there because it's cool, okay? And it's just, the theme parks are filled with lots of things that make no sense. Think about it. You walk into Disneyland and there's a castle at the end of the street, and the people who live in 19th century America haven't picked up on this yet.
Yeah, I think it'll give the team members an opportunity to get creative with that as well. If guests ask questions about that kind of thing,
that's a good point.
That's
just have them turn around and go, "Oh my god!"
It's one of those things. Like when they first announced like the concept art and everything, I was like, cool. That's a great concept art idea. And then I had this moment maybe about 6 months ago. Holy crap! They're actually going to put the dragon up there.
It does look awesome, man. I think it is, for how much you think, maybe in the continuity of things it shouldn't be there. It is cool.
Well, and at the same time, it's interesting you bring up continuity, because with Hogsmeade Village and Hogwarts Castle, you are in a definite moment in the Harry Potter.
Bring this up.
Yeah, that the whole notion of what you're in the middle of the Tri-Wizard tournament. In fact, I think it's the day of the Dragon Challenge because you walk up the hill and you've got all those posters and that sort of thing. So it's that exact moment in the book. Diagon Alley really is kind of all over the place. I mean, face it, you clearly, if you're in Gringotts trying to break in, that's in the middle of
Year 7 and
Deathly Hallows. Okay, but at the same time, it can't be that time because Ollivanders is open. It's not closed, and decimated. Because you can go in there and they'll put you in one of the 3 rooms. Likewise, again, Weasley Wizard Wheezes is open for business. So it's like, okay, so is this right after the Goblet of Fire? I mean, chronologically, it's kind of all over the place, but at the same time, it's just fun. It's just, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're really going to be a stickler about, well, all these things don't belong together. It's like, again, go to the Magic Kingdom and it's like, wait a minute, Snow White lives right next door to Mr. Toad.
It's the George Lucas philosophy.
Yeah.
Who cares?
There you go. Okay. But yeah, it's more to, they talk very much about, after they did Hogsmeade and Hogwarts, about talking with fans and where they wanted to go. And these were the things that were on the very top of the list, and more to the point, these were the things that, because of the physical layout of Universal Islands Adventure and Universal Studios, that they could do. Going forward, are there other things that are possibly on the table? Yes, that's as of right now, Sinbad and Poseidon's Fury are relatively safe. Likewise, Dragon's Challenge, but evidently there's some discussion of bumping out the borders of Hogsmeade in both of those directions and doing a lot of stuff with Forbidden, the Forbidden Forest and such. But yeah, there is more stuff to come.
Now, Jim, I've got one final question for you, and I think it's possibly the most pertinent one because we ask everybody who comes on the show.
Yep.
Butterbeer. Are you a frozen or a regular guy?
Having had a couple of the butterbeers at this point, I'm a fat guy who's borderline diabetic, so I like watching people drink it, but I am not drinking it anymore.
Okay.
Just I don't want to slide over into a sugar-induced coma.
Fair enough.
That's absolutely fair enough. Jim, we're going to wrap it up there.
Okay.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, as usual. And I know that everybody listening is going to have enjoyed it as much as we have.
Definitely.
So I just want to say a big thank you for coming back on the show and talking about what sounds like an absolute landmark in the theme park theming.
It is. It's again, cannot stress enough that folks have to go out and check it out. But like I said, give them some time to get the training wheels off. And again, don't get me wrong. You want to be there on opening day? Go have a good time. I'll be there probably myself, but I'll be watching the line rather than standing in it.
Very wise.
But no, but this is, as always, guys, I'd love coming on the show and would be happy to come back and chat with you folks when they finally actually admit they're making the King Kong ride.
Definitely.
But hey, that could take a couple of months yet.
Yeah, well, we'd love
months.
that.
It might be longer than that.
Yeah. So yes, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Diagon Alley officially grand opens this coming Tuesday. And once Darren Hunter and Gregory have visited the area, I'm sure there'll be another very special podcast coming your way. So that'll wrap up this episode, and join us again next week for episode 99. So until then, for Jim, Darren, Hunter and Lee, I'm Tracy, and this has been the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast.
That does it for another unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Between shows, we'd love for you to get in touch. So email us with your spews, funny schmitz, comments, questions, and news to podcast@uuopodcast.com. Keep up with what's going on every day by following us on Twitter at UUOPodcast, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/UUOPodcast, follow us on Instagram and Pinterest at UUOPodcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/UUOPodcast, and don't miss a show by subscribing to us on iTunes, and please leave us a review. Not an Apple user? Then head over to uuopodcast.libsyn.com and subscribe to the feed while you're there. You can also find us on Stitcher Radio and at micepod.com. Come find us on our partner site, micechat.com, join the forums, and say hello. So thanks for listening, and remember, be adventurous.
This has been a MicePod.com presentation.
MiceChat.com